All right, let's go ahead and get started. So, waffles or pancakes? Pancakes. Why am I still... How can you read Hebrew but not speak it? I can speak it, I just don't understand it. Like, I know the alphabet. Can you share the article that you and Ian were talking about on their live yesterday? I can, but not during the live, because if I do, then it will minimize the recording that I'm currently doing on my PC. Best theory in all of science? General relativity. It's my favorite. What's your current rabbit hole big interest? My research, like that's always what it is. Generally cosmology though, like more specifically. How can you speak it but not understand it? Well, I can say I know what the words are. Like I can read words, but like I can read Spanish too, but that doesn't mean I understand it. Is consciousness possible outside of time? I don't think so. I didn't see your speed of light question. Sorry. Maybe ask again. Like the live guys, so then we can get more people in here, and we'll get more questions going. No outside of time? I don't think so. Do you believe in God? I do not. How do you know you're observing the same entity when you claim quantum teleportation? So the point is that you can run the experiment, right? So that you measure you set up the experiment 1,000 times, and then you measure your initial state, that before teleportation, 500 times, and then you teleport 500 other ones, and then you measure those states, and you can compare the statistics. How do we know speed of light isn't 0.5c in one direction, instantaneous in the other? We don't. That's a convention choice. But it kind of makes sense that it probably isn't, because the universe doesn't seem to have directionality in any other way. So what's the image imposed on the screen? This is a Feynman diagram. So we have an electron and an electron coming in, exchanging a photon, which turns into a virtual electron-positron pair, and then they bounce off each other. What do you think will trigger the big crunch? Well, it'll just be a gravitational recollapse. That's all. There's no outside time. There's no outside of time. Did before time exist? I don't think before time exists makes sense. When does consciousness arise? I don't know. Sometime in the past. If you shoot a bullet in space, will it ever stop? Not unless it hits something. Well, okay, in principle, it'll stop eventually just from drag from the cosmic microwave background radiation, but that's probably not a thing that'll happen. Does use of strong interaction to make strong surface, like in three-body problem books, makes... I haven't read the book, so I can't say. What was before the Big Bang? Probably nothing. There probably was no before the Big Bang. If there was a before the Big Bang, then it was just a previous universe that had collapsed. Can you explain the different schools of physics, quantum, astro, classical? What's separate? They're not like different schools. They're just different parts. So quantum physics is about the study of the very, very small. Astrophysics is the study of the stars. Classical physics is, well, it's kind of as the name implies, it was like the original physics, so it's applicable on the scales of like, anything from like molecules up to like planets. They're just different regimes of applicability. Favorite gen ed class you had to take in undergrad? I didn't have to take it. It was general relativity. Why are the planets on a plane? Right, so the planets are on a plane because generally when you have a spinning system with a whole bunch of gas flying around, it tends to form something called an accretion disk. And the reason why it forms an accretion disk rather than just a sphere around the thing is because if there was a sphere, well, it's all orbiting, so they're going to smash into each other. However, you have to conserve angular momentum. And so in order to have angular momentum conserved, what'll end up happening is they'll preferentially end up moving in the same direction. And so you'll eventually end up with everything moving in the same disk. And then the planets form out of the disk. Are you going to keep doing these after you move to the US? I hope so. Is water wet? Yes. Can you talk about the relationship between time, light, and gravity? Well, I mean, light and gravity aren't related, except insofar as light has energy and energy gravitates. However, gravity is the curvature of space-time, and that includes time. So in particular, we have that the stronger the gravity, the slower time moves around that gravitational object. Is there science and religion? Not really, no. Black holes equals pocket universes? I don't think so. I don't know what a resonance cascade is. What's the next big thing in science you're excited for? I'd like to see the next year's DESI results. So DESI is the dark energy spectroscopy instrument, and depending on what its data shows next year, it did its first data release in April, we may very well have to rewrite our understanding of cosmology. So that'll be pretty neat. Is the exploded manhole cover the furthest man-made object from space? It probably vaporized. It's not like it didn't stay intact. I haven't read Lawrence Krauss's book, so I can't comment on it. Any thoughts on the mass behind the observable universe resembling that of a black hole? I don't think it's like it resembles it slightly, but not really. I'm not very convinced by it, but I do have a video on it that you can check out if you're curious. Do you think science is taking the place of religion in people's lives? No, I don't think so. What if a unification of quantum and general relativity is unfalsifiable? Why would it be? Have you written any papers that are published that I can study? Yeah, I have 8 published papers. Soon to be 11? Or no, I'm sorry. I have 6 published papers, 2 that are currently in review. I will be submitting another 2 in the next month or 2. On your perspective, do you think that humanity can ever reach civilization type 1? That whole ranking of civilization types I think is not super useful. Yes, humanity will continue to advance. Can we go through wormholes? I don't think wormholes can exist, at least not macroscopic ones, so probably not. Do you think there exist multiple types of multiverses? I don't think that there are multiverses. There's many worlds in the quantum mechanics interpretation, but those aren't separate universes. How's the missus? She's good. Can you explain Hawking radiation? Does it interact with anything? Yeah, so Hawking radiation is just light. It's photons. Almost entirely it's photons. And it forms basically, and by the way, this is why the whole matter-antimatter particles splitting off and then one going into the horizon, the other one going away, that's another one of the reasons why it's not a great analogy. Hawking radiation just arises from the fact that in a gravitational well, the quantum vacuum changes so that from an outside perspective, it looks like that quantum vacuum is slightly warmer than the quantum vacuum far away. And so because it's slightly warmer, it radiates. That's it. Is there a source that I can learn mathematics of dimensions? Pick up a book on linear algebra. How does time work in space? I don't know what that question means. Where are the nowadays Einsteins? Working at universities generally. You're going to major in physics. Any advice? Absolutely. Go to ops hours. Why do some particles act differently when observed? Well, think about what it means to observe things. To observe things, you have to bounce photons off of them, or you have to pass them through a magnetic field. You have to do something to them. And so, of course, when you do something to something, it's going to behave in a different way. What's your take on the panspermia theory? I'm not so convinced by it. I don't know anything about soil physics, no. What happens to time when you move at the speed of light? Well, you can't move at the speed of light. But as you approach the speed of light, time from an outsider's view would appear, or your clock would appear to be ticking slower from an outsider's perspective. Why the accretion disk is information does, I don't know what that question means. Do you think making a Dyson sphere is possible? Possible, sure. It doesn't break any laws of physics. It's just not practical. How do photons experience time? They don't. Is time travel possible? I don't think so. How can Andromeda be heading towards us if galaxies moving apart due to the expansion of the universe? So galaxies aren't moving apart due to the expansion of the universe. Galaxy clusters are moving apart due to the expansion of the universe. So in any system where, in any arrangement of matter that's gravitationally bound together, expansion isn't doing anything to it. It's only when things are so far away from each other that their gravitational that the gravitational attraction pulling them together is weaker than the expansion pushing outward, do they actually get further away from each other. Yes, time doesn't change. It absolutely does. It's been measured, actually. Could a star with a really high enough rotational velocity result in a toroidal black hole? So spinning black holes are in some sense toroidal. They have a ring-like singularity, but no. No, in general, the event horizon, there is a maximum speed that a thing can spin at, which is essentially the speed of light. There's evidence for multiple dimensions. I wouldn't use Michio Kaku as your source of evidence. He's kind of fallen off in the last 20 years. Curvature of space-time. What is the space made of that curves due to mass? Space-time is just a mathematical description of a thing that we can measure. And a good way to mathematically describe what's happening when you have mass that results in gravity is that space-time curving. I mean, we don't think of like the electromagnetic field being made of anything. Similarly, the space-time is a field that's not made of anything, it's just there. I'm a bit behind. Has AI ever helped improve your particular field of physics? No, it has not at all. Can we go backwards in time? Probably not. How do you think the universe was created? I think that the universe probably has always existed. I think that it's probably an infinite cycle of expanding and contracting universes, but that is subject to change given new evidence. Can you recommend course units best for theoretical physics, most necessary in your opinion? You should take all of the physics that you have available to you, basically, and all of the mathematics that you have available to you. But well, you probably don't need to worry too much about number theory. But besides number theory, basically all of the mathematics will be helpful. Theoretical physics is really about knowing as much as you possibly can. If we observe a distant planet, is it in the past or present due to distance? Well, it takes time for the light from a distant planet to get to us. So what we end up seeing is the way it looked in the past. However, it is currently in its own present. If it's toroidal, it has a size. How can it be a singularity? So it's still one-dimensional. So it's just like an infinitely thin ring. Is it theoretically possible that we can manipulate gravity from black holes to live longer? You can just go hang out by a black hole, but you won't experience living any longer. It's just the rest of the universe will go by faster. How much does time dilation differ from the closest 10%, furthest 10% of a galaxy from its... there's basically no difference. What's the no infinities argument against FLRW? I don't think that there are any no infinities argument. What he was really getting at is that there are no infinities, like, the thing that I think is probably correct is the statement that there are no local infinities or no measurable infinities. That's probably true. You can probably never measure infinity. But if the universe is infinitely large, you can never measure that, so. I'm a bit behind, sorry. Michio Kaku is a credited physicist, an author in scientific data. He doesn't limit what's possible. He hasn't written any scientific papers in over 20 years. And yes, he's an author. He's an accomplished author, but he's kind of fallen off in the last 20 years, like I said. He's become more of a TV personality than a scientist. If space-time is made of nothing, then how can it curve due to mass? Well, I mean, it's the same way that like electromagnetism, the electromagnetic field, is made of nothing. Like it's not that it's like made of nothing. It's that it doesn't have any pieces. It doesn't have anything smaller than it that makes it up. Would you ever consider stat mech as your field of research? No, not really. I don't care for it. Do you believe in any religion or creator? I do not. Do you think we will discover dark matter? I hope so. Yeah. You're not a scientist? My job title says otherwise, and my degree say otherwise. Do you have any single friends? Yeah. Couldn't be manipulated by gravity and everything else speeding up be considered time travel? Yeah, you can travel forward. You can travel forward in time, just not backward. Is physics a study of one's physical? I don't know what that question means. The difference between a scientist and a great scientist is if they're confined by what they know. That's nonsense, but okay. Do you think the universe will expand into infinity or experience a great crunch? I'm leaning towards the crunch, but that is subject to more information coming. Is physics pure mathematics? No, it's physics. Pure mathematics is pure mathematics. What are your papers called? I'm not telling you. Can vacuum modes be redshifted? Yeah. How long's your hair now? It's quite long, but I haven't measured the length, no. Why can you travel forward but not backwards? That's a really good question. It just seems impossible that you can't travel. It just seems like you can't travel backwards because every time somebody tries to come up with a way to do so, it breaks a law of physics. Also, Stephen Hawking once held a party that he only announced the date of after the party, and nobody showed up. So, are you going to write a book? Maybe. I thought the big crunch wasn't true. Was there new data? Yeah, the data from DESI at least opens the door for the big crunch again. if you take lambda CDM, which is the currently accepted cosmological model, seriously, then you can't have a big crunch. The universe will keep expanding forever. However, that data from the dark energy spectroscopy instrument kind of suggested that maybe lambda CDM actually isn't the correct model, and that dark energy may be getting weaker. In which case, we actually have to, we might have to reconsider the big crunch. Do magnetic fields with enough energy to distort spacetime? Absolutely. What do you think a Higgs boson particle really is? It's just a Higgs boson particle. What do you think AI will bring to the physics community? I'm not sure if it will. I'm sure it will, in the same way that it'll affect everything, but I don't really see it. Yeah, by the way, consider supporting the live, tap the live to like the live, consider subscribing. If you have the extra funds, feel free to send them. I have a Cash App in my bio. I have a Buy Me a Coffee in my bio. These are all things that are greatly accepted, of course, or greatly appreciated, of course. Are you a mean professor or a nice professor? I like to think I'm nice. Always been confused on gravity between Newton and Einstein theory. Yeah, so Newton's was phenomenological, meaning that he came up with a formula that described gravity, but he didn't describe how it works, right? Einstein came up with a theory that reproduces Newtonian gravity, but also explains how it works. Namely, Einstein says it's the curvature of spacetime. If you had 4,000 million, what research would you do? Probably the same stuff. I don't know. Thank you for the subscription. I appreciate that. It's huge. Thank you, Ali. What's the hardest question a student has asked you? It's been I haven't taught in a few years, so I don't really remember. Thoughts on Wilczek's time crystals? They're neat. Like it's a really cool idea. Do physicists like to party? Yes. How's my real human brother doing? He's busy. Why does a nuclear power plant release gamma radiation when meltdowns happen? Well, it releases gamma radiation just generally. Like that's the thing that radioactive things tend to do. I don't think it's confined to just when a meltdown happens. It's just when a meltdown happens, you can have a lot more radioactive decay happening because you're not moderating the neutrons effectively anymore. Does infinite regression through hierarchy instead of time work? It depends whether you're going backwards or forwards. Who uses more math, experimentalists or theorists? Easily theorists. How does the Higgs boson affect the strong or weak nuclear force? It doesn't affect the strong nuclear force at all. However, it basically determines how the weak nuclear force behaves. Electroweak symmetry, well, it's not just electroweak symmetry breaking, but yeah, the weak nuclear force is intimately connected with the Higgs boson. Do you think fusion energy will be viable in the foreseeable future? I think so, yeah. Do you have a favorite sci-fi writer? I mean, I like Orson Scott Card, even though he has weird politics. Do we know anything about antimatter? We know so much about antimatter. Is CERN safe? Absolutely. What do you think about the efforts of rich people to create a correlation between their intellect? I don't know what that means. And their money. Oh, okay, yeah, that's dumb. I mean, like, look, there are rich people who are smart, there are rich people that are dumb. Why isn't nuclear power utilized more? It's very, very hard to do properly and safely, and it costs a lot of money to set up. What's the difference between a jet and a hadronic shower? That you'd have to ask Ibrahim. Is there such thing as a negative distance? No, not really, no. Is there anything about philosophy of physics you would want to be more common knowledge? Just that we shouldn't confuse the map with the territory. That's all. Wouldn't the big crunch disprove God? Maybe. Thoughts on Biden dropping out of the race? It's fine. It's good, even. What do you think about alternative universes or realities? We have no evidence for that. Are you pro or anti-nuclear? I'm fine with nuclear. I think that if we could do it quickly and cheaply, I'm fine with that. I don't have any issue with that. But there are issues, namely it's very, very expensive to set up, and it's very, very slow to set up. What field of physics costs the most money and needs the most funding? Particle physics, because you have to build big, giant machines. Is there hope in physics for someone who loves the concepts but hates the math? Not really, not today. Do you still believe in string theory? I never really did. Are more physicists going to finance? I don't know if it's more, but a certain fraction of them do. Can gravity only be described with a rank 2 tensor? Can charges possibly exist in a rank 2 tensor? Can charges exist? So gravity is, I mean, current gravity is described with a rank 2 tensor, but maybe some new theory could describe gravity with something else. However, can charges possibly exist? Not in a covariantly constant sense. No, I don't think so. Hadron showers are jets. Okay, thank you, Ibrahim. There you go. Is the big crunch possible? It seems possible. Is space a field? Sort of. How's Evelyn today? She is cute. The discussion you had with that guy about nuclear was very interesting. Yeah, I agree. You seem very dogmatic and confident in your deductions and thoughts. No, I'm just confident, but okay. What do you think about particles doing different things if they're being observed? So that's just a behavior about what observation is. So when we observe something, we have to do something to the thing that we're observing. And so that's, of course, going to affect behavior. As a mathematical physicist, could you transition to experimental physics, and if so, how easily? Probably not, to be honest. I just don't have the technical skills. What sort of undiscovered creatures do you think exist in the deep ocean? I don't know. It's not my job. What purpose does the Higgs boson have? It doesn't have a purpose. It's just a thing that exists. It happens to be the thing that gives fundamental particles their mass. So like the electron mass is because of the Higgs boson. Is string theory a waste the last 60 years? No, go watch my video on the subject. Any update on quantum computers? Not that I know of. It's not my area. What does the plus or minus 1/2 electron spin mean? Does it mean it has an axis? No, what it means is that it has a certain amount of angular momentum. And the angular momentum is related to its magnetic dipole moment. So in some sense, it's related to how magnetic the thing is. In another sense, it's related to conservation of angular momentum. Does that mean that the graviton wouldn't have to be spin 2? Well, so if you had a different theory of gravity, like something completely new, conceptually new, then in principle, yeah, I guess it wouldn't have to be spin 2. But GR is like a really good theory of gravity, so the graviton is probably spin 2. You have a PhD in physics too, who doesn't nowadays? Lots of people. There's like, what, 50,000 of us in the world? What are your thoughts on LHC CERN? It's awesome. It's amazing. Do you enjoy geophysics? What's your thoughts on human consciousness being connected to the universe? I don't think it is. Is there a particular problem that many are working on? There are a lot of problems that many are working on. Can you elaborate on the current standing of the graviton? It's well described mathematically, and there's no experimental evidence of it. Physics and science is constantly evolving. Your seemingly lack of openness is concerning. I don't think you know me, so, that's fine. I guess if you want to believe that, you can believe that, I guess. How long until physicists are able to create element 120? It's a really good question. I saw the same article that you guys did. Maybe soon. Could be 5 years? What do you think about dark stars? Do you think that they explain supermassive black holes? I've heard of these. It seems like a cool hypothesis. I'm not sure if I'm convinced, though. Do you believe that consciousness is purely matter? Yeah, in some sense. What's the difference between applied physics and engineering? I don't know. Once the percentage of a wave is smaller than a Planck length, it stops. I don't know what that means. You're oddly dogmatic versus supposed academic. Am I? What am I dogmatic about? Can we develop a mathematical system that incorporates chemistry, and can we add all of the variables? Yeah, it's called mathematical chemistry or physical chemistry. Why does quantum state, when observed, changes state? So I did just answer this, but the basic gist is that when you observe something, you're interacting with a thing. So, of course, when you interact with something, it's going to change because you're doing something to it. If gravity is the bending of space-time, why does it require a force carrier particle? Well, so look, all of the fundamental forces can be described as a curvature in some like kind of space. And then also, excitations in that curvature can be described by a particle. This is just the whole wave-particle duality business. Can anything survive through a black hole? Maybe. It depends on what the core of a black hole is like. Have you ever seen The Big Bang Theory? Did you like it? Yeah, I think the show's fine. At least like the earlier bits I thought were funnier than the later bits. Are you going to watch the CERN meeting tomorrow? No, probably not. I didn't even know it was a thing. Is some kind of teleportation physically possible? Not the kind of teleportation where you survive. Is the wave function a description of reality or just a mathematical formula for approximation? That's a philosophical question. I tend to lean on the side of it's an actual description of reality, like it actually has ontology. Dude, I'm gonna unfollow you because you were rude with your followers. Okay, bye. What do you think is going to be the next major scientific breakthrough? I don't actually know. This is one of those things where, like, you're asking me to predict the future, and I can't. What's your specialty? I do geometry and gravity. Why can't compression be used to split water thermolysis like in diesel? I have no idea. I don't know anything about that. How do you become a tenured professor if that's still your goal? It is still my goal. How do you do it? Apparently write good papers, be able to bring in funding, like grant money. I guess know the right people, apply at the right time. I don't know. I haven't figured it out yet. Hate to be the person, but you have a lot to learn. Physicist means nothing. Okay. If you hate to be that person, why be that person? Were you disappointed when you learned the quantum teleportation algorithm for the first time? No, I actually thought it was really elegant. Inspired me to do science and academia. Great, I'm glad to hear it. Was Einstein originally seeking a sort of objectivity with his theory of relativity? I don't know philosophically what his goals were. Do we know the density of dark matter? As in, like, well, so dark matter isn't going to form like atoms, at least probably not. So it's not going to have density in the traditional sense. Like, you wouldn't say that electrons have a density. But we can talk about like how dense they are around a given galaxy, for example. Some guy said physics means nothing. I know. Is there any black hole near us where we could send a probe to it? We can't even send a probe to the nearest star, so no. Do you think divine intervention is possible? No, I don't think so. Are you interested in astronomy? Yeah, it's like it's cool. I like it. What's with the dark oxygen stuff? It's out of my field. Mr. Earth Guy has a video on it. Go watch that. Do you believe different dimensions exist? No, I do not. Thoughts on Einstein's conception of God, like Spinoza's pantheism? I don't care for it. Explain E8. Is this geometry unification theory? No. So nobody's really taking Lisa or Garrett Lisi's theory seriously. E8 is an interesting group, and it has a whole lot of symmetry, and it's really, really nice, but nobody's really thinking of it as a serious unification model. Last time you had to pseudo-inverse a matrix, I have not had to in a very, very long time. If Einstein was alive today, do you think he would continue to make breakthrough or hit a wall? I think he would continue to make breakthroughs. What does string theory change that fixes the problem with single point theory? Literally the strings. Because they're finite size, there is like a minimum size rather than just being able to zoom in, zoom in, zoom in, zoom in forever. And so you don't get infinities. You ever entangle yourself with a woman? I'm married. What's your favorite geometric shape? I'm partial to spheres. I like me some spheres. What should be included in a new cosmological model but be taken seriously? Well, it better reproduce general relativity, whatever model you're using. It better be able to reproduce the cosmic microwave background radiation. It better be able to reproduce the abundance of primordial hydrogen and helium. There's a bunch of different things that it better be able to reproduce. Thoughts on geometric unity? I haven't thought about it because it's not a real theory. How do you retain information? You just read it a lot. Is there a way to test for mass having an effect from parallel universes? Yeah, I suppose, but it's never been detected. What happens if a large star merges with an equally sized black hole? The black hole eats the large star. What made Einstein special? He was just really, really smart. Just really, really smart guy. If you could bring a scientist of history back to life, who would it be? It'd be Einstein, because he would just solve our problems for it. Like, the man was the GOAT. Like, he just was. How long do you estimate before we can reconcile quantum physics and classical mechanics? We already have. Classical mechanics, or do you mean general relativity? Because if you mean general relativity, that's a much harder problem. How does PhD level physics help in day-to-day life? So like, it depends on the area of specialty, right? Like if you're doing like condensed matter stuff, you're like working with like high temperature superconductors, which are super useful. You're working with like nano devices. Like there's a lot. Do you have published work? Yeah. Is particle wave phenomenon a real thing or just a simplification for undergrads? It's a simplification. Would you informally peer review a paper if I paid you? No, then it wouldn't be unbiased. I need study recommendation tips both as I don't know what that means. Thoughts on PEMDAS? It's based. Why was there such a boom in science back then and just so little now? What do you mean there's so little? There's more scientists alive today than there were then. Newton was not the GOAT. No, Einstein was the GOAT. Do you believe space is ether? No, I don't. Based on math, they say warp travel is possible, but we lack fire. That's actually not true. So there was a paper by Eric Lentz a few years ago that made that claim. Unfortunately, he made mistakes in his paper. Is Ed Witten as scary as Eric Weinstein claims? So he's intellectually scary, but he's actually like a very, I don't want to say meek, he's a very timid man. He's very quiet. He's very shy. So, but he is an intellectual giant. How much time did you dedicate to studying daily while in school? I didn't really. What is your opinion on Einstein reversed his position and reiterated the existence of ether? He didn't. What about Hawking? Who's better? Einstein's better than Hawking. Einstein's the GOAT. If the big crunch happens, would stars and planets still be around, or would it only be black holes? Yeah, they'd still be around. Why do you think we haven't detected intelligent life anywhere? Because the universe is really big. I missed his name. Can you repeat? Ed Witten. Wheeler Penrose? Penrose. I know it's a conspiracy, but do you think other advanced beings are out there? Probably, just really far away. If you have to pay to see papers because they're behind a paywall, aren't you biased? I don't have to pay to see papers. I don't pay. I've never paid to see a paper. And you shouldn't have to either. I have a video on how you can go find papers without a paywall. What's your most hated math class? Real analysis. Ugh. The worst part is I've had to use it recently. Do you need to be exceedingly good in math to be good at basic physics? Not at basic physics, but if you want to be a physicist, you have to be you have to know what you're doing with mathematics. Because mathematics, it's like the language of physics. What's the difference between experimentalists and engineers? Ask Ibrahim. What are some things coming that excite you? The DESI results, DESI 2. So next April, probably, the dark energy spectroscopy instrument will be releasing their next batch of data, which might have very, very significant implications for our understanding of cosmology. GOAT mathematician? Cartan. Might be Cartan. If we're talking about recent mathematicians, in the if we're talking about like mathematicians of all time, probably Euler. Euler's probably the GOAT. Is it hard to be a determinist when Trump missed? Nope. I can't talk about that. How does a field have mass if it's just a mathematical entity? Yeah, so the thing is fields, in like the current conception of physics, fields aren't mathematical entities. They're ontologically real. Like the fields are the true things that are real, and the excitations are just the things that we measure from the fields. In which case, it having masses has no problem at all. If there was an equation for time travel, would it then be possible? I guess. What single event caused the biggest leap in physics? What single event? Events don't usually cause leaps in physics, so it's really hard to say. Dark matter team, Axion, WIMP, modified. I'm on team WIMP, but I'd be happy to see the Axion discovered too. So you avoid the UAP stuff? Yeah, because I don't care about it, like, at all. How do you focus on writing your dissertation? Coffee. I actually didn't drink coffee between freshman year of college and the last year of my PhD, and then I needed to start writing my dissertation, and I started drinking coffee again. So, how old were you when you got your PhD? I got it right before my 29th birthday. Yeah. Does your passion drive you? Would you Yeah, it does. But sometimes, like, look, my job has a lot of different kind of flow states to it. Some flow states are like really like banging your head against a wall, thinking really hard, and that's really frustrating. And then there's another, I shouldn't say flow states, some like aspects of the job are that. And those are really tricky, but when you succeed on those, the dopamine rush is huge. And then there's other parts where it's just kind of like tedious calculations, which I know exactly what I'm doing, and those can be like a fun flow state to get into because it's in some sense like relaxing because you're kind of just typing away, calculating whatever, and I can have like music on and I'm kind of just like in the zone. And there's other times where I'm writing, and that can be really satisfying. So it really depends. It really just depends on what part of a project I'm working on. You're aware that Microsoft recently took back its research in quantum computers? Nope, and I don't really care. Have you heard about wormholes to electron-positron pairs being the fabric of the universe? I saw the same clip that everybody else saw. I want to read the paper because I don't really buy it. What are the differences between general relativity and special relativity? General relativity is what happens when you take special relativity and add gravity. That's all. What's your opinion on the particle accelerator? It's cool. I want to study dark matter and globular clusters. Where should you start? Get a degree, I guess. Have we hit a ceiling for what we can learn from particle accelerators? No, so long as we keep dumping money into it, right? You can keep building bigger and bigger particle accelerators, and we'll never know what we find unless we look. But at a certain point, the cost-benefit analysis might be not might outweigh the actual benefits, right? The cost might outweigh the benefits. Do you have any idea about the size of the universe pre-Big Bang? It depends on which model you're using to describe the universe. Yeah. Can a field be excited and yet not yield a particle? Yeah, sure. You can just have like an electric field. Doesn't have any particles in it. It's just in a non-vacuum state. But in some sense, it has like virtual photons floating around. Are you a theoretical physicist or an experimental physicist? I'm a mathematical physicist, so closer to a theoretical. They're part of the job that isn't satisfying. Reading papers. Most of the papers I have to read are not really interesting, but I have to read them anyway because I need to know some result or I need to, learn some topic, and that's a real slog. And I'm actually really not good. Like I'm really bad about actually reading as many papers as I should be. How much money are we talking? A lot of money, billions of dollars. How is it mathematically possible that the universe is eternal? Well, just the t value goes all the way to negative infinity. Did you see they discovered a black hole 0.1 light years from Sagittarius A star? Not surprising, but neat. I hadn't heard of that. Is there a reason for your belief that singularity is not existing? Well, because singularities are a sign that the math breaks down. It's never been the case that singularities show up in some physical theory and then in some classical theory, and then it's actually like real that those singularities exist. It's always just, you just need a quantum theory and it gets rid of the singularities. That's always how it's been. How much of the papers do you read? It depends on the paper. If it's really critical, I'll sit down and read the whole thing. If it's just something that I'm kind of skimming, then I'll skim it. It really depends on the paper. How hard was it to find a job? It was real bad. I applied for 60, got 2 offers. Is there a dollar amount you could be paid to defend flat Earth? Yeah, $1 billion. How stressful is the job? It's not very stressful. Do you think ITER will prove feasible fusion, and when do you think it will be available? I don't know, but I'm hopeful. What sparked your love of physics at a young age? Black holes. Black holes are just rad as hell. They were just so cool. Who is the go-to contemporary physicist? I mean, it's Ed Witten. Like, it has to be Ed Witten, right? Where can you read papers for free again? You definitely cannot read papers for free on Sci-Hub, which you can Google, and you definitely shouldn't Google libgen, Libgen, and type in the name of articles under the scientific articles search function. Definitely don't do that. Did you know Einstein in his lecture May 5th, 1920 says, therefore there exists an ether? Why aren't you putting in all the context, buddy? Dark matter or Mond? Mond, easily. Why do you talk so fast? Because my brain goes fast. Can't learn anything significant from a physicist. Well, except physics. You can learn stuff from physics. Only had to apply to 60. I applied for 60 postdocs and I got 2, or I got offered 2. I don't know what to tell you. I got 4 interviews and I got 2 offers. Is my lip okay? Yeah, I just pick it up sometimes. I haven't applied to ETH, Zurich, no, or MPI. Most beautiful mathematical identity? I'm very partial to the theorem of egregium, which is Gauss's egregious theorem, or remarkable theorem. If you Google that site, will the feds be at your house? Probably. Do you consume a lot of sugar to think that much? I do consume, well, I don't consume that much sugar anymore. Why do particle physicists like to strive away from the standard model? Because the standard model can't be the whole story. There's problems with the standard model, so they're trying to figure out what the solutions to those problems might be, and they're testing them. Is it possible that a large neutron star that hit by asteroid or comets gives the mass change to a black hole? Probably not. I mean, it's in principle possible, I suppose, but I suspect it's never happened. Where can amateurs publish a paper on cosmology? You can't. Like you just can't. If you're an amateur, you're never going to make a breakthrough in cosmology. Like it's just the way things are. Is this the speed round? It's always the speed round. Come teach in LA, please. I want to study under you. Well, if UCLA has an opening and they need a young mathematical physicist as a tenure track faculty, let me know. What is your favorite thing about living in the Czech Republic? Kofola. It is the Czech Republic's response to Coca-Cola. It's called Kofola, and it's so good. What do you think about Tesla's take that light as a perturbation of the medium of the ether? Well, he's wrong, unfortunately. He's just wrong about that. What are your thoughts on string theory? I think it's a beautiful mathematical theory, and I'm not sure if it's true. What are the chances our universe is in a black hole? I think it's not very likely, but that's just me. What's your favorite rotation representation? I prefer, so honestly, I just prefer the matrix groups. Like it's just so clean. Would you like to become a prof? Yeah. Yes, I live in the Czech Republic, and I'm not going to tell you where I work because I would tell you where I work, and I don't want you to know that. The black hole starts with the collapse of a star core. Yeah, basically. Do you believe AI can be sentient? Maybe. What's your dream university to work at? Honestly, any, what is it? What's it called? Tier 2? Any R2 university or better would be fine. As long, like, I mean, ideally closer to my wife's family would be better, but thoughts on Eric Weinstein's criticism of string theory? He sounds a little unhinged. He is a little unhinged. I wouldn't take him seriously. Thoughts on quantum gravity? It's the holy grail. It's the holy grail of physics. What is your opinion on the measurement of time? We do it. I just made a video on it. Do you want a research grant? I already have one. It ends in May. Murphy's Law, what about it? Why is gravity so hard to explain? So usually we think of space-time as being like the background on which stuff happens. But a theory of gravity has to explain how space-time evolves. But space-time includes time. So it's really, really complicated to even conceptualize, let alone to actually like describe mathematically. Could you quickly explain the three-body problem and maybe your thoughts on it? So the three-body problem is just, how do you mathematically describe the behavior of, say, 3 gravitating bodies that are all mutually gravitationally attractive? And like, we can solve it. Like, the solution exists. You just plug it into a computer and like you can get arbitrary precision solutions. The only reason why it's a little bit funky is because, at least in classical physics, the two-body problem, there's like a really short formula that you can write down. That's the answer. The three-body problem has no such short formula, but that doesn't mean that we can't solve it. Are you into crypto? No. Why do particle accelerators have to be big? Well, it's a limit on our ability to produce magnets. So in order to continually accelerate the particles, you basically want to pass them through certain magnets, or actually not magnets, they are microwave resonance cavities, or no, they're radio frequency resonance cavities. You want to pass them through them over and over again to speed them up over and over again. So you can either have one really long thing with a bunch of RF cavities, or you can just make a circle that the particles can then pass through many, many times. The trouble is, if you have a circle, you have to bend the particles around in a circle. And in order to bend them around in a circle, you need magnets. And the strength of the magnet Like currently, we're limited by the strength of the magnet. The faster they go, the stronger the magnets you need. And, so yeah, the faster they go, the stronger the magnets you need. And so if your magnet strength is fixed and you want to make them go faster, you need to make your circle bigger so that they turn less. And that's the current problem. Does your job pay well? My job happens to, because I have a grant. In general, it wouldn't. Do you take email questions? It's better to just DM me. Do you have something that needs a research grant? I mean, I need to put food on the table. What's your dream course to teach as a professor and why? Well, I have taught before. I actually really like teaching classical mechanics. Like very first course to engineering students, that I love doing that. Have AI bots ever helped with anything at all in physics? Not as far as I know. Let's jump down. Can you elaborate on what strange particles are? They're just a type of particle that is made up of, or that include, something called a strange quark. So there are 6 types of quarks, up, down, which is what makes up protons and neutrons. Then there's strange quarks and charm quarks. And then there's top and bottom quarks as well. The strange quark is the next heaviest after up and down, and so it's the next most common to show up. It's still very unstable, though. Would a superconductor be able to probe gravitons? No, probably not. Can you really tell the future? No, I can't. Well, I can, but using physics. Is there a natural particle accelerator? Is that just... Yeah, there are. There are natural particle accelerators. Supernovas do it. Neutron stars do it. Black holes even do it. What's your thoughts on Max Laughlin? He's not really special, it seems. Does your wife work? No, she doesn't. Not right now, anyway. Difference between a field of mathematics versus physics? Physics is about explaining the world around us. Mathematics is about explaining the world that we made up. Why is that okay? To time travel, you have to change the universe to keep yourself... Why do you keep saying that, Hal? You're not asking a question. Is the universe a closed system? Hard to say. Do you like electricity and magnetism? I don't love teaching it because the calculus gets really heavy, but some of the concepts are really cool. Would you only consider a professor job in the US? Yes, for family reasons. I wasn't able to go to the particle accelerator in Chicago during high school. I spent 2 summers there, which is really cool. Gravitons! I don't know what the question is, but it doesn't seem like there's a question there. Can you please explain gravitational potential energy? Yeah, so potential energy is just an energy associated with position, right? It's not an energy associated with motion, it's an energy associated with position. And the idea is that, well, if something has a tendency to have a force acted upon it because of its position, then there will be a potential energy associated with that force. So when I hold this pill, it contains my headphones, up, if I let go on it, it would have a tendency to have a force acting on it, gravity. So it has a potential energy, and that potential energy is the amount of kinetic energy it would have when it hits the ground, essentially. Do you view mathematics as a language? Yes, absolutely. I have not seen One Piece, no. No, I don't work on quantum nanoscience at all. Is the universe continuous or discrete? I don't know. I'm kind of leaning towards discrete, but it's hard to say. What's your view on the usefulness of philosophy of science? I think it can have validity, but only for explaining things that we already know work well. I have ever been to CERN? I have not. Is it true you can explain low energy gravity interactions with the derivative of Maxwell's equations? It's called gravitoelectromagnetism, and yes, you can. I think I even have a video on it, but it's only an approximation. You should learn what a clock is and the calendar. You'd be surprised at all the information that... What? I know what a clock is. In context of quantum mechanics, how can we reconcile it? That's not a full question. Second year studying applied math with a minor in physics. What courses do you recommend to aid physics? Whatever's recommended by your university will be fine. Can wormholes exist? Probably not. Non-locality of quantum entanglement with the principle of locality and relativity without violating causality or requiring fast... Oh, okay, you're asking about the... Yeah. So in the many worlds interpretation, there is no violation of locality, or there's no violation of locality. So that's the interpretation I take. Is there a limit to virtual particles in a Planck length? Virtual particles are not a real thing. They're a mathematical tool. They don't actually exist. What's the biggest difference between chemistry and physics? Physics deals with one atom and chemistry deals with many. Do you see movies as an opportunity for people to be interested in physics? Absolutely, yeah. Do you have any advice for people to learn math who are bad at it? I'm going to say no, not because I think that it's impossible for you to learn math. I just don't know. I just don't have that advice. Is the landing with the headphone box random, or could it map? What? What do you think about free will? I don't think there is any. What's the new data in favor of a cyclical universe? So the data comes from the DESI project, the Dark Energy Spectroscopy instrument, which seems to be suggesting that our universe might not expand forever, which opens the door for a cyclic universe. String theory requires that we have 10 dimensions. Yes, M theory requires 11, string theory requires 10. So gravitational potential energy only exists when something is floating? No, it just exists based off the position. So when I'm holding this thing, it has gravitational potential energy, right? Why isn't time just considered an aspect of space? It's considered an aspect of space-time. Explain the observer effect. The observer effect is just what happens when you interact with something. When a big thing interacts with a quantum thing, then you change the quantum thing, and so of course it changes. What do you think is the best explanation for dark matter? My guess is it's a particle. Gravity was true. Why did the Big Bang happen? I don't see how the two things are related. The Big Bang is predicted by gravity. Why is it c squared? Just to make the units work out. If it wasn't c squared, then you wouldn't get units of energy on the left-hand side. Why do they think the universe is more than 3 dimensions? Well, not everybody does. String theorists do, because that's what's required by string theory. How does one explain gravity as a curve in space-time versus potential energy? Yeah, so the potential energy picture is a very Newtonian view, very old style classical physics kind of view. The new view doesn't care about potential energy at all. There's just curvature of space-time. Thank you for the glasses. There's just curvature of space-time, and the more curved the space-time is, the more the motion is affected. Aren't virtual particles evident in a magnetic field? No. Gravity is true. Why did the big... Oh, I already answered that. Do you know any good university for mathematical physics? Most large state universities will be good. What kind of work have you worked on? I've done some stuff on gravity, some stuff on quantum gravity, some stuff on pure geometry. Is time truly the fourth dimension? It is a fourth dimension. How many distinct sets of size k are there when sampling with replacement from a set of n objects? Isn't that just distinct sets of size k? Isn't that just n choose k? Why is there something rather than nothing? Great question. Opinion that Big Bang was actually a big bounce? Yeah, I mean, that's what I think, but I'd be happy to be wrong if the evidence came out against that. What do you think about the theory of everything? I hope that there is one, but I am not sure. Which Nobel winner do you think was most overrated? I don't know. I don't think any of them were. I think they generally do a pretty good job. Thoughts on evolution? It's cool. How is Navier-Stokes equation still useful and correct, even though it's still a millennial problem? Well, look. So the Navier-Stokes problem is a mathematical problem. You can't prove things mathematically just by like going out and measuring things. But we know the Navier-Stokes equation works because we go out and measure things and it matches. We just need to prove that all of the solutions are always smooth and, you know, have certain criteria, whatever it is. What do you mean by time is a fourth dimension, not that? Well, there's just no like ordering. Like there's not like a preferred reference. Like, you know, left and right isn't like dimension 1 and then up and down is dimension 2. Like there are 4 dimensions, one of them is time-like. Where are we in advanced propulsion like warp drive? Where are we in advanced propulsion? Where warp drive's not real. It's not going to be real, unfortunately. What do you think about Yugoslavian socialism? I don't know a lot about it, but I've heard good things about it. Like generally better things than like, you know, Soviet socialism and like Chinese socialism. So can you explain the sonic boom? Yeah, so if you're traveling through air really, really quickly, you're pushing air out of the way. But when you're going sufficiently quickly, the air kind of gets stuck. It can't move out of the way fast enough. And so you just get a really high dense shock wave trailing off from you, and that's the sonic boom. Thoughts on left-handed electron spin of kaon decay being the same occurrence when mirrored? Oh, I'd have to think about that some more. I can't comment on that immediately. How do you visualize SO31? You don't. You visualize like SO11 maybe. Does quantum mechanics have duality throughout, or can it? I don't know what that question means. What makes a magnetic field align ferrous material? Ferrous metal? You mean why is the magnetic field aligned with a magnetic object? Is that what you're asking? Will humans visit other solar systems? I hope so. Do you think ionic drops will be efficient enough for large-scale use? I hope so. Can you observe time with no past reference frame of... I don't know what that question means. Are there any massless particles? Yeah, plenty. The photon is the best example. Will AI be the next Einstein? I doubt it. I should jump down. Do you think religion will shrink in the near future? It is shrinking. Have any of the rules changed since the Big Bang? Like we have I don't know what that question means. Would you ever have time for peer review? Probably not, no. Can you explain how vacuum has energy? Yeah, so this is a tough one. So first, think about a spring. Now, you can think of a spring as having the force on the spring gets bigger and bigger as you go further and further away. And so then you have a thing oscillating back and forth. Now, given the rules of quantum mechanics, the spring can only oscillate at certain frequencies. It can never oscillate at zero frequency. It can never not be moving. It always has to be, there's a minimum amount of oscillation. You can think that this is sort of due to the Heisenberg uncertainty principle, namely that if it was not moving, you would know exactly how fast it's going and exactly where it was. So it always has to be moving at least a little bit. Now, the way that we model space-time vacuums, the way that we model quantum vacuums rather, is as just a whole bunch of little springs. And so if a spring has a minimum amount of energy, then a vacuum field, even a vacuum has a minimum amount of energy. If you fall from the top of the Burj Khalifa, will you die? Yes, very, very yes. Will the Alcubierre drive work? No. Quantum gravity was solved today. What is the big problem tomorrow? It depends on what other things quantum gravity solves. If it solves dark energy, dark matter, does it solve, does it solve singularities? Like, it really depends. Do numbers or ratios appear in nature, like pi the exponential? So ratios, I mean, like we observe ratios in nature. Whether they actually like appear in nature, that's a philosophical question. Why do we need neutrons when the electrons are just fine? True. Is antimatter real, and where is it? It's in our laboratories. If virtual particles are not real, then how does ferrous metal align with waves in a magnetic field? So I don't actually know exactly what you're referring to, but basically all of electromagnetism can be done on a lattice, and then you don't need virtual particles at all. You can just solve the system. You can just solve the system exactly. So the fact that we can do the calculations without invoking virtual particles at all means that virtual particles are just a mathematical trick. Have the constants of the universe always been the same, or could they have changed over time? They could have, but we haven't seen them. Is red light heavier? Why does light shift red at the event horizon? Red light's not heavier, it's just lower energy. So basically energy is sapped from a photon as it's trying to escape. And so it gets redder because redder light is lower energy. Are physicists better? I can't answer that. Do you think we'll ever conquer perpetual motion? No, absolutely not. Yeah, just do QED on a lattice, no problem. We can do QCD on a lattice, just do QED on a lattice. Z-axis doesn't exist in second dimension, but time exists in our... What is that? I don't know what that question means. What benefits does a particle accelerator bring? Well, we learn more about the universe. What is wave-particle duality? I have a video on this, but it's nothing. It's nothing. Why have we not discovered population 3 stars yet? I don't know. That's a very astrophysics question that I just don't know the answer to. Can photon have any energy value or only discrete values? A photon can have any energy value, but you can't have any amount of energy for a particular wavelength of light. Doesn't a theory of everything have to exist for all the universe's interactions to work? Maybe, but that's only if you assume some sort of mathematical realism. Who would win in a fistfight? 100 neutron stars versus black hole? A black hole bodies. So if energy is sapped from a photon as it travels space, no. So the energy is sapped from a photon as it leaves a black hole because it's resisting the downward gravitational pull. In the same way that when you throw a baseball up, it slows down, not because of resistance, but just because of gravity. Light can't slow down, but it can lose energy, and it loses energy by decreasing its wavelength. Or, sorry, by increasing its wavelength, decreasing its frequency. Can you explain quantum decoherence? Yeah, the idea is that when you have a system, a quantum system, that and then have that quantum system interact with a large macroscopic system, that large macroscopic system becomes entangled with the quantum system. However, that entanglement spreads nearly instantly. Any interaction is going to cause entanglement, and so very, very quickly you have a quantum system that was in some sort of superposition entangling with the rest of the universe, basically at light speed. Now, if you are part of that system and you're only looking at a subset, you wouldn't see it as in a superposition. You would see it as being in a mixed state because you're throwing away all the external environmental data. And so at that point, it looks like it's collapsed in a statistical manner. Could dark matter be seen as anti-gravity? No, dark matter is very positive gravity. It attracts things gravitationally. What are the hard limits for IC design regarding transistor size? A few atoms, maybe? How does physics prove the Earth is round? Gravity, generally. All of physics basically proves the Earth is round. Do you believe there's something other than electromagnetic and gravity forces? Yeah, there's also the weak and strong forces. Can we create a small black hole at CERN? No. Can a black hole implode and become a star? I made a video on this recently. Generally, no. Opinion that no singularity inside black holes and they just explode very, very slowly. It's a neat idea. I don't know if it's true, but it's a neat idea. Isn't it true that you can only measure in reality at the current time? I don't know what that means. Could you explain why the Alcubierre drive would not work? Yeah, so it requires matter that has negative mass, which we have no reason to think exists. And if it did exist, it would cause all sorts of problems. Can magnetar produce natural lasers? I don't know. It's a really good question. Do Lorentz-Ampere force equations have some mathematical derivation? Not really, not as far as I know. Well, okay, maybe, but you'd have to go really, really deep. I have a video on deriving the inverse square law, which isn't quite the same thing as the Lorentz-Ampere force laws. You'd have to go really, really deep to like the symmetries of the universe and quantum mechanics probably, but yeah. Is there really no such thing as centrifugal force? Is that just... So centrifugal force is, it's like a, it's one of those things that it's a force that is there if you're in a bad choice of reference frame. But then it's actually a force that you have to account for. Is there anything in nature that definitely can't be proven mathematically? That's a really good question. I'm way behind. 2024 constant velocity subluminal warp drive. Yeah, I know about that. It's not like, if it's subluminal, then it doesn't do anything. You may as well just use conventional rockets at that point because it's going to take way more energy to do a subluminal warp drive than it will to actually just go the speed. That, and if you're doing a subluminal warp drive, you don't even get to take advantage of the time dilation that you get from moving at really, really fast speeds through space-time. So, yeah. How does light lose energy through the emptiness of space? Is that also virtual particle? No, it just loses, like, one of the properties of expanding space, or what, like, you can just, there's no virtual particles here. It's just a photon. One of the properties of moving through an expanding space or a deep gravitational well is that it loses energy over time. We can create antimatter. Antimatter doesn't have negative mass, though. What's your favorite moment of being wrong about something? Nobody likes being wrong. You just get used to it. Is there any real right now that breaks the laws of physics? No. It wastes energy and kills the user. There you go. What's your birthday? The third of June. What's your thoughts on quantum immortality? That it's not real, but check out my video on the subject. Why were blue LEDs so hard to make? I think Veritasium has a good video on this. Gravity causes the waves to, it doesn't cause them to slow down, it causes them to lose energy, but they don't slow down. Can you explain how a laser works compared to a light bulb? So a light bulb, all it is you have stuff, you get something really, really hot, and because it's hot, it emits light. A laser, on the other hand, is a very, very particular mechanism of emitting light. So electrons around an atom can only emit light of a certain kind based off of the atomic structure. And so all you do is you excite those atoms one way or another, maybe with electricity, maybe with heat, whatever it is. And then those atoms, they jump up to a level and then they decay. and then they emit that light of the wavelength that you want, and that causes more atoms to decay in that same wavelength. So you end up with a very, very pure beam of light. Subluminal wouldn't have to deal with blue shifting all the ambient light to dangerous energies. I'm not sure if that's true. I think that you would have stuff entering the warp bubble and hurting you. Unless for some reason it would deflect things, but I don't think that would be true. Have you heard of the Casimir effect? Yes, I have a video on it. I have a few videos on it, I think. What's it called when you continue to discover new things the more you zoom in on them? Are you talking about fractals? What's beyond the universe? I don't think there is a beyond the universe. How would you maintain quantum coherence in a macro system? Make it very, very cold and very, very insulated. Do you think it's possible for to collapse wave function in your brain to create entanglement? No. I don't know what you mean by that. Sorry, my nose is so itchy. Any theories that might mean that death wouldn't exist? For example, B theory implies we're always alive. No, death will always happen. Do you know Michio Kaku? I don't know him personally, but I know of him. I'm going into calculus with poor arithmetic base. How can you fix it? Practice your arithmetic. Is the crisis in cosmology potentially solved by a variable rate of expansion? Maybe. I haven't seen any papers on the matter, but maybe that's the case. Do you find not understanding some complex concept frustrating? Very. Sorry. Where's my Iron Man suit? I left it in the cave that I built it in. Could gravity exist if there's one body in space? Or only if there's two bodies to experience it? Yeah, sure. Gravity is absolute. Are Higgs boson able to give photons mass? If not, why? Well, they don't give photons mass, kind of by definition. So the Higgs boson is what caused electroweak symmetry breaking. Namely, it caused the electroweak force, which had 4 particles, to break into 3 particles and a photon. So you end up with the three weak force particles, which are the W plus and minus bosons, and then the Z boson. Those all have mass. And then the 4th particle, which is just the particle that it didn't give mass to, became the photon. Yeah, I'm not worried about the dark oxygen stuff. That's not my field, so I haven't thought about it at all. What was your PhD thesis on? It was on conformal hypersurface embeddings. Wouldn't that mean quantum coherence is always breaking down? Yes, it is. So when are you going to quant? I'm not. I hope not. Thoughts on holographic universe? I don't know if I believe it. It's really nice mathematically, though. Here's a question in physics: and something moves, what is the reason cause of that physical movement? This is some previous thing. Does classical field theory study singularities? Generally, no. They try to avoid them. How hard did you find college while majoring in physics? I didn't find it that challenging. Particles that can decay multiple ways, how do they select into what is decay? It's effectively random. Whew. Like if you practice, could it be possible to tame your brain matter with things outside the brain? No. Brains are too wet and too warm. Can you accelerate a photon to the speed of light and cause a star to implode by hitting it with photons already go the speed of light? What are BGG complexes for? They're useful for constructing invariant operators for a given algebra, for a given parabolic algebra. That's what it is. You want to major in physics? How much of it is actually just math? None of it's just math. But there is a lot of math there because the language of physics is mathematics. It'd be like majoring in Spanish literature. So if you major in Spanish literature and you speak English, it's not about the Spanish part, it's about the literature. But you better be able to speak Spanish to do it. Have you considered teaching? Yeah, I have. I have in the past, and I hope to again in the future. Do you think chemistry is inherently better understood in terms of physics? Yeah, of course. You really want to learn physics before you start? Pick up a textbook. What Czech beers do you like? Do I like? I mean, Pilsner Urquell is fine. Like I like it. I like it plenty. How long were you in school for? Plenty of time. What's the next step for an undergraduate physics student? Is a master or PhD more worth it? If you want to do physics for a career, you need a PhD. Can you explain why we cannot point to the direction of the Big Bang? The Big Bang happened everywhere. There wasn't a place where the Big Bang happened. It was everywhere because it was just space-time expanding, and we're in space. So the Big Bang was all of space expanding. Why do photons move? Because if they didn't move, they wouldn't be photons. Entanglement needs cold and dry. Yes. Cold and dry and small. Is everything without mass photon? No, there's also gluons. What is the Leonard-Jones potential? It's a phenomenological approximation of the way that atoms bounce off of each other, basically. Basically says that they attract each other until they get to a certain distance, and then there's a hard inner core, so they don't overlap. You're never really demolishing anything as much as you build them. I don't know what that means. Favorite boson? I'm quite fond of the Z boson, actually. Is faster than light theoretically possible if we can fold space? Sure, I guess. But you can't, so there's no particle wave duality. What is light a photon? It's an electromagnetic field. It's a quantum electromagnetic field. What does PhD stand for? Doctorate of Philosophy. Philosophy doctor. Can physicists work on terrestrial problems, or are their heads always in space? Lots of physicists work on terrestrial problems. Does physics preclude free will? Yeah, a little bit. What would happen if the infinite nothingness in space was replaced with oxygen? The universe would collapse back. It would collapse back in on itself. How long does a proton live? As far as we can tell, forever. What are your thoughts on oscillating universe theory? I like the idea. See, by the way, like the live, y'all. What are you doing? We've been live for an hour and 12 minutes, and we only have 18K likes. What are you doing? Also, consider supporting the live. That's the thing that you want to do. Like, I have a Cash App. I have a Buy Me a Coffee. There's TikTok. All these things. Great ways to support the live. If you have money to spare. If you don't worry about it. Is warp speed possibilities? Probably not, no. Can global warming just be natural? It doesn't seem to be. The data doesn't support that. Okay, let's just say 1 and 2 are being added, and this is why, I don't know what the question is. At what speed do free electrons travel? That depends on they could travel, the slowest they could travel is, well, they couldn't really travel 0 speed. They could travel arbitrarily close to 0. At what's, I already answered that. So is the quantum not really able to interact with classical physics because of the world? No, quantum things can interact with classical physics. They just collapse when they do. Do you think nuclear fusion power plants will be made frequently and will be more frequently built in our lifetime? I hope so. Paper or plastic? Paper. How difficult is it to establish a career as a physicist? Very difficult. What laws cannot be broken? Seems to be momentum conservation. Seems like it can't be broken. And the second law of thermodynamics. You have a problem with axioms you just have to accept without understanding? How do you deal with that? Understand the axioms better. Get good, son, right? Do electrons decay? No, not as far as we can tell. Does it make sense to shoot particles in space to block sunlight? No, that wouldn't help at all. Do you enjoy Rick and Morty? Yeah, I do. It's not because I'm a physicist, it's just a funny show. Force equals MA? Yeah, classically. Are there careers using outside academia for physicists? Yeah, like finance, software, big data. Thoughts on using nuclear energy on a wire scale? Generally, I think it's okay as long as it can be done well. How can solar sails work if photons have no mass? They have momentum, not mass. The point is momentum is not just mass times velocity. It's more complicated than that. That's just a good approximation for things with mass that are moving slowly. Are electrons made of vibrating waves due to string theory? Well, according to string theory, yeah, but we don't know if that's true, if that's correct. Are force carrier particles the only massless particles? As far as we can tell, yeah. Are you familiar with solipsism? Yeah, I think it's dumb. What would be the best way to stop a meteor hit from hitting the Earth? Deflect it early. Is computer science a science? It's a science, but not a natural science. Do you think a human's observation can affect particles? No. Not any more than like a camera's observation can. Is it possible to make, say, a spaceship be perfectly still compared to the rest of the universe? Yeah, sure. You just make it so then your velocity is 0 with respect to the cosmic microwave background radiation. Can we use low solar reflectors to make an interplanetary railroad made of lasers? That'd be cool. Probably not, but that'd be cool. What is momentum for particles with no mass? It's related to their energy. The energy of a particle with no mass is its momentum times the speed of light. Do you think we won't be able to leave our galaxy or only visit local galaxies? But yeah, I don't know if we'll ever be able to leave the galaxy. Is gatekeeping in physics and mathematics stifling humanity's ability to solve real problems? I don't know. Maybe. Do most physicists believe in a creator? No, actually. I think that they're in the minority. How much did Futurama have right? Not that much. Is there a hole in the ozone layer? There is, but it's healing. You wouldn't say microchip development is a science? It's not a natural science. It's a science, just not a natural science. A natural science is the study of the natural world, but computer science is kind of definitionally not a natural phenomenon, right? It's like artificial, we make it. So it's just not a natural science, but it is still a science. What's the biggest physics conference? There's a lot of really big ones. I was at one quite recently. But, you know, it just depends on the field. Probably the American Physics Society is probably quite big. APS. What does physicists gain by being a Trekkie? You don't gain anything. I just like Star Trek. You've got ADD. Any study tips? Get a prescription for something. Seek medical help because that's what helped me. What's the biggest question we're trying to answer in physics today? There's so many, but the one that I think is probably the biggest is the question of quantum gravity. We will if we harness dark energy and it's faster than light. Dark energy doesn't have faster than light properties. Well, why is Star Trek so bad now? It's not. And if you think it is, then you have a bad opinion. Is Neil deGrasse Tyson legit or he's legit? He knows what he's talking about. I think honestly he is one of the better science communicators. He's one of the more popular science communicators that's around right now. He does oversimplify some things sometimes, but he knows what he's talking about generally. Do you believe we are headed to an age of abundance or the latter? I hope we're headed towards an age of abundance. Can you explain quantum gravity in simple terms? Yeah, so we have quantum physics on one hand, very, very small stuff. We have gravity, very, very big stuff. I'd like to be able to describe gravity of the very, very small stuff. But it turns out doing the physics is really, really hard. 1v1 me in a harmonic oscillator battle. Bro, my harmonics oscillate so hard. Is quantum entanglement faster than the speed of light? Depends on the model that you think about. Like if you take Copenhagen interpretation seriously, then yes. If you take the many worlds interpretation seriously, then no. Do you read my replies for your YouTube videos? I haven't read many comments on YouTube, so favorite Star Trek series is Deep Space Nine. Say more about gravity and where we are at with currently. So we understand gravity really, really well, just not at the smallest scales. Thoughts on the Orville? Excellent. The Orville is excellent. You're an undergraduate student at T20. What schools are best for graduate school? It's the obvious ones: Stanford, Berkeley, Caltech on the West Coast. MIT, Yale, Harvard, Princeton. I guess Columbia. The Ivy Leagues on the East Coast. Ever heard of Kyle Hill? And if so, yeah, I like Kyle Hill. I almost had a chance to play a game of Magic: The Gathering with him, but he bailed. Scientists recently found the gene that causes shyness. That's funny. What is woke mind virus Elon Musk talks about? It's just being a decent human being. How can light have energy if its mass is 0? E equals mc squared only applies to massive things at rest. Light is not a massive thing at rest, so the formula for its energy is different. The formula for the energy of a particle of light, a photon, is its frequency times Planck's constant. What made you decide to study physics? Black holes. Black holes are just really cool. Why is it so hard to grasp the universe expanding into nothing? Well, it's not expanding into nothing. The universe is everything. It's not like there's an outside the universe that it's expanding into. Yes, I did see Green describing Tyson. No, actually, no, I didn't see that. That was in another clip, I guess. I watched the YouTube thing. I guess I didn't see the rest. Are you satisfied with the paper review culture in your field? Yeah, I'm fine with that. Are you a professor? No, I'm a postdoc. Favorite character on DS9? Garrick. It has to be Garrick. What is the universe expanding into anything? It's not expanding into anything. It's just expanding. Its space is getting bigger inside the universe. Do you like Elon? No. What leads to the dogmatic rejection of physics evangelicals have? Because physics tends to disprove their religious beliefs. Can you affect entangled particles by affecting one of them, or you just know their state? Yeah, you can affect entangled particles by affecting one of them, sure. But you can't affect the other one. Well, okay, no, you can, but you can't communicate them faster than the speed of light. Yeah, plain simple Garrick. Simple Taylor Garrick. Does a postdoc mean a broken grad? Broken. No, postdoc is I finished my PhD and now I'm doing research at a university, but I'm not a professor. Did you play Mass Effect? I did not. How can you accept the concept of infinity as a human? You don't picture it. You just kind of like get used to it. Did space exist before the Big Bang? That's hard to say. Quantum fields and phenomena such as quantum tunneling and stochastic resonance. What about it? Why is our observation so important in quantum physics? It's not. It's just interaction that's important. Can you explain the double slit experiment? Yeah. When you don't measure something, it behaves like a wave. When you measure something, it doesn't behave like a wave. And the reason it doesn't behave like a wave is because you're measuring it. And to measure it, you have to do something to it. So it changes its behavior. Does a BA in physics have potential in the workforce? Yeah. As much as like, a BA in math would probably. How would you define bound states in QFT? I guess you look at the spectrum, right? You look at the spectrum of the system and see if it's discrete or if it's continuous. Can you please explain the right-hand rule? Yeah, you take your right hand, and then you stick your hand in the direction of the first vector, curl it in the direction of the second vector, and then your thumb points in the direction of the cross product. I'm actually using my left hand, but that's because it looks like I'm using my right hand in the video, because it's reversed. What qualifies as interaction? Any macroscopic system interacting with a microscopic system. Where'd you do the majority of your schooling? In the United States. What do you think kickstarted the Big Bang expansion? I don't know. Least and most favorite areas of math. I like differential geometry. Why does the hand rule matter? It's just a convention. It's just a convention. As long as we all agree on it, then it doesn't actually matter which hand you use. We just have to agree. Although the expansion of the universe is faster than the speed of light, why isn't it measured in speed? Well, because it's not a speed, it's like a rate, right? It's like a doubling time. Like if I told you that a piece of paper was doubling in size every 10 minutes, what's the speed of that? It doesn't have a speed. It's just a doubling time. The universe is the same. What do you think of Kamala Harris? I like her. She's not perfect, obviously, but like I like her. I think that she's a better choice than what we had before. Can you increase propulsion amount of hypergolic fuel safely to output more instant? I don't know what that question means. What does it mean when physicists say the universe is not locally real? What they mean is that the universe is either not local or not real. And when they say not local, that means that light doesn't travel, that things can travel faster than the speed of light. When they say not real, it just means that there's not some predetermined state that exists even if you're not measuring it. What's your favorite classical physics topic? GR, general relativity. What does it mean when physicists, I already answered that. It's one of the latest developments in physics that there's been. There's developments in physics every day. But a big one was the DESI release, DESI data release 3 months ago, when they showed that dark energy may be slowing down or getting weaker, which means that the universe's accelerated expansion may be getting weaker. Do neutrinos have mass? Yes. Is it possible to go faster than the speed of light? I don't think so. Gravitational field strength inside a sphere of uniform density decreases towards the center. Yes, that's true. How long before lasting fusion? I can't tell you the answer to that. Does atheism have any real-world applications than print or online? I don't know what that means. Define tensors. A tensor is something that transforms like a tensor. Did you see Particle Claire online yesterday? I didn't, but I like her content. She's really, really good. What would happen if a quark pair was sent into a black hole? It would just fall into the black hole. Opinion that time is complex and not real, that it became real during the Big Bang. That was my video that you saw. That was my video. Why are you asking for my opinion on my video? Are we living in a simulation? I don't think so, no. How fast is the speed of light? About 300 million meters per second. Why do people generally find physics not enjoyable at university? I don't know. It's hard, I guess. Does more energy radiate from nuclear fusion than the energy required to fuse? Yes, in principle. You know, Reddit atheism flopped in 2010. Okay, that's fine. There are still atheists. Which would you consider a bigger breakthrough, time travel or FTL travel? Well, neither will happen, so neither, I guess. It was my video. Does more energy radiate from nuclear fusion than is required to perform? Yeah, I already answered that. Chinese food or Indian food? Indian food. Can you go through the Van Allen belt? Yeah, sure. Was Stephen Hawking as impressive as someone like Einstein, or was he famous for his impairments? He wasn't as impressive as Einstein, but he was very impressive. One of the best of the 20th century, probably top 20 in the 20th century, but Einstein's number one. So, like, Stephen Hawking and his colleague Roger Penrose revolutionized the way that we think about black holes. Like, we can basically attribute almost all of our understanding of black holes to one of those two people. Imagine a penguin is a perfect cylinder. Which hole does it go through into the bucket? It goes into the square hole. Does space actually bend around large objects? Yeah. Is it unlikely that FDL will be invented? Yes, it's unlikely. I would say it's impossible. Is perpetual motion a theory or is it impossible? It's impossible. Yeah, the Van Allen belt weighs about as much as a donut. So yeah, no, you're fine. All right, y'all. So it's been about an hour and a half, so I'm gonna end the live here. But for everybody who's been watching, everybody who's been enjoying, thank you very much for being here. Everybody who's watching online, I hope you guys enjoy.